The people that take the most copious notes and ask the fewest questions are the most successful. How many of you English is not your primary language? You're fucked, but anyway, that's too bad. We stopped asking that question like 16, 18 years ago. Did you hear that now? The most copious notes, most of you aren't gonna take any notes. Now, even though I'm making a big deal of it right now, if somebody will remind me the morning of the third day, and then I used to go back and I check your notebooks. Even when I tell you this, you're still not gonna take notes. Why is that? Because you're pretending. 1 in 10 of you will remember what I said, even though I'm gonna say it almost every day. Those that ask the fewest questions do the best. Good evening. Before I forget, I went back and looked at your husband's file just to refresh my memory. We have a young lady here that her husband came a couple years ago, both to the hardcore and the regular seminar, and somehow the Carlins had poor taste to befriend them, and so they're friends with the Carlins, which are the superstar couples that I've referred to the last several years, who happen to be from Dundee, 25 miles up the road, who now live in, amongst other places, Dubai, and got a bunch of houses. But more importantly, and I wouldn't bring it up, she came because she saw how successful the Carlins were, but more importantly to herself, she saw how successful her husband's been. And during the seminar, we'll talk about that. But now, as I told at least one of you on the one-on-ones, I see a lot of people either through third-party referrals, as they're called in sales, or second generation, the kids of successful mentees. More third-party referrals than second generation. But I'm not going to be around long enough to be a third generation. 100 or 300 times I'm going to say, but you're not going to do this. And contrary to what you might think, I'm not saying this to use reverse psychology. It's because you're not. You're going to find the emotional sacrifice too great. Now, the gentleman with the full beard, is that a full beard? Reminds me of a rabbi that came to the seminar, and the hardcore, who's now the only rabbi in Saudi Arabia. He set up household in Neom. Remember I said 5 or 6 years ago, if you spoke Arabic, you shouldn't come to the seminar. And if you're here, you should leave tonight and take a one-way ticket to go to the kingdom. And many of you have written that you've read all my shit. Well, you're a fucking liar, you have. Well, he has a full like that, and he is currently, actually he's fighting with Israeli Defense Forces, so he's a major or something. And he went there, and he set up the only synagogue, I think, in the kingdom. And he's the head rabbi. But he had a full beard like that, plus some other accoutrements hanging from his head. Nothing that you're going to hear starting tonight is any different than is free on the website. You're going to see a slide tomorrow morning. A nice kid asked me on one of my interviews, because I see people when I'm out traveling around the world for 20, 30 minutes for free. And he says, why do you do this? You haven't had to work in decades, and all the material is free on the website. Because I want to take the last excuse away from you, sorry cunts, why you didn't do it. For some of you that you think you need a personal experience, you don't. But you'll find that out. You'll figure that out about noon tomorrow. And that's the world we live in. And that's why it's the perfect environment for QLA. It can't get much better. I keep saying that. And every time a new war breaks out. It can't get much better. I'm hoping that while I'm still alive, not giving seminars, that I'm just going to have robots here. And for those of you that can afford the robots, you send them to the motherfucking class where they're going to tell you what Jesus knows. Allah. Or my perfect scenario is you just send the fucking money and don't come to the seminar. That's the perfect scenario. But I might not live long enough for that. I'm pretty sure I'm going to live long enough for the robot. A young man, I believe, it was a young man, unless it was an it. He fooled me. Said, if you were me, I wasn't such a young man. It was actually an old fart with a pot belly. Well, there's a few of those. I think it was you. If you were me, and what would you be? And I say, we have data, tons of data to show, illustrate beyond any other thought process, the people that take the most copious notes and ask the fewest questions are the most successful. How many of you English is not your primary language? You're fucked, but anyway, that's too bad. We stopped asking that question 16, 18 years ago. Did you hear that now? The most copious notes, most of you aren't gonna take any notes. Now, even though I'm making a big deal of it right now, if somebody will remind me the morning of the third day, and then I used to go back and I check your notebooks. Even when I tell you this, you're still not gonna take notes. Why is that? Because you're pretending. 1 in 10 of you will remember what I said, even though I'm gonna say it almost every day. Those that ask the fewest questions do the best. In years gone by, I used to just look at your faces and I can pick who's gonna ask the most questions. I used to help myself with cheat notes. I'd look at your files and I can tell about your background, your education, etc. Who's gonna ask the most questions and fail. But I don't do that now. I'm a grandfather. I'm a kindly, gentler person. I don't do that now. And there are such things as stupid questions. I don't give a fuck if you can't speak English. You're going to hear Marcus Bauer in 2-3 days on a webinar say that when he came here 12 years ago, he asked me, somehow he got through on the phone, does it matter that maybe I can only understand partially what you're going to say? And he says, Mr. Peña lied and said, you don't have to understand anything I say. All you have to do is follow the steps. Well, all you have to do is follow the steps. And even if you don't understand what I say, if you follow the steps, you'll succeed. But 98% of everything it takes to be successful in this program, which countless thousands of people, remember, 99.9% of the people that have succeeded with QLA have never met me. 99.9% of the people that have succeeded with QLA have never been to a seminar. Now, admittedly, knowingly, I've not produced a billionaire that hasn't come to the seminar, but I've certainly produced a whole bunch of people that you're going to hear from. There's a 23-year-old kid I'm going to talk to you about tomorrow who's, you're going to see some slides in the beginning after I pontificate a little, that the last deals that came across my desk was closed in calendar year 2023. And they come in a flurry. And there's 4 examples, I believe. I don't believe, I know. One of which is a 23-year-old kid with the greatest respect, 50 IQ. He's listening. Closed his 3rd deal on the cusp. Never been to the seminar. He says he's covered most of the material, but since he can't read, I find that I'm a little skeptical. And then there's you. And you'll be able to check off the box. I speak English. I read and write English. I've got this degree and that degree. And my wife says she's supportive. My family says they're supportive. And I go on. And then 15, 18, 20 months from now, you're going to go to Reddit. Is this still a Reddit? You're going to go to Reddit and say, QLA doesn't work. But all I ask you to add is an asterisk that says, because I'm a big vagina cunt. That's all I ask you to do. Of course, you won't do that, will you? This program is not for everybody. But for those, when they were interviewing the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, after he won from coming down 10 down to winning in overtime, he said, we wanted it in the San Francisco 49ers. How many of you wanted more? We'll find out. We used to have a survey that Jack Welch invented. It wasn't my idea. And it's one of the things that he was famous for. They used to call him Nitron Jack because when he'd take over companies, when he was the head of this GE, General Electric, for 25 years, he'd fire all the people and keep the buildings. And they called him Nitron Jack because a nitron bomb doesn't destroy bricks and mortar, but it evaporates the people. So when Nitron Jack took over a business, let's say there was 25 employees that are in here, at the end of 30 days, each one of the people sitting in the audience, your colleagues, as they say here, would rate all other 24. And so he would rate the 24 that are in the room, and the guy with the long beard would rate the other 24. And he'd do that 3 months in a row. And the bottom 20%, reality was the bottom 40%. But in his book, he only says 20. The bottom 20% would be fired. I still use this. It works like, I can't give it a metaphor good enough. There's a new management style that's been in about the last 18 to 24 months. It's called outcome management. Netflix uses it. Siemens just adopted it, amongst others. And you all run divisions. And your sales quota for 6 months is 10 million. And you're whatever, okay? And that's it. That's the end of the meeting, sales meeting. You have a piece of paper that you unfold, kind of like a James Bond movie. You unfold it and it says 10 million. Okay, well, you're thinking, I can easily make that quota in a year, and then it's a quarter. And then at the end of the quarter, I don't tell you how to do it. I don't tell, as long as it's moral, ethical, and legal, it's up to you. But on day 1 after the quarter's over, if your numbers aren't what your outcome goal was, you're fired. Now, rather than go through that process, in recent months, Elon Musk, who's the flavor of the day still, fired 95% of his Indian employees. He didn't even go through the regimen of doing the test. I could have told him that. Sam and I run a pretty big organization in India, and we're swinging just a little bit back from the woke. Just a little bit back, not enough. I'm not sure I'll live long enough to see the full swing back. I gave a political meeting here about a month ago, and I told the current administration of the S&P, in ancient times, most of you would have been burned at the stake and killed. Most of you should have been burned at the stake, or more importantly, your parents should have been burned at the stake, because how's your program worked out so far? For those of you that have high and lofty degrees, I'm jealous because I don't have high and lofty degrees. I just have one little measly one from also ran university. It'll be harder for you. For those of you that have 60, 70, 80 IQ, it'll be easier for you. Once you get over the fact that you've only got 60, 70, 80 IQ, which some of you will never get over. Now, all this I say on my website, don't I? Have I given any new information yet? That you paid all this money. Now, I was surprised, and it was brought to our attention by MI5, one of our staff, who's other than MI5, she's our in front. of house person, right? Okay. We were in the newspapers a couple of days ago. I didn't know anything about it because our plane almost fucking crashed. That's why we ran out of fucking fuel. And Sally and I are trotting down to London for Valentine's Day, amongst other things. And we take off at Aberdeen and we go up to 35,000 feet or something like that. And now we're flying like this. My lunch and fucking champagne, all this shit is, and I said, Sally, you notice this? And she said, yeah, everything's okay. The flight attendants are going in. And then we swing back around and we land in Edinburgh, which is only about 80 miles from here. Because they didn't tell us exactly that we ran out of fuel. But they had an electrical problem or something. And so, but then we were informed, and then I read about it, the link that you sent me, Sally. So we were almost in the 6 o'clock news. Well, some of you, and I use that analogy, have never been in the 6 o'clock news, most of you. And although we have a rapist or two or a pedophile, maybe not that kind of news. I'm talking about the financial news. But you're going to be given the tools to get on the 6 o'clock news in a good way. You're going to be given the tools. There's 42 financial tools out there right now. You only need one. It will be very difficult for you, but more difficult for your chairman that you recruit and your dream team that you recruit based off the back of your chairman to understand there's only one financial tool that's worth a shit. And when I discovered Andrew Carnegie in 1971, 2-ish, that the little Scottish genius who was just down the road from us, about 40, 50 miles, I never looked back. And it's the only financial tool that you're never going to be given advice by Goldman Sachs, the Bank of Scotland, JP Morgan, etc. to use, because it's free and there's no fees normally associated with commercial banking. There may be an overall management fee that they charge you because they need to charge you something, or an overall management fee. But commercial debt, if we use a financial tool, is as far as we go down the road. And those other 40 we don't use. And some of you have financial backgrounds. That'll be tougher for you to get over that, swallow that pill. But the biggest pill you have to swallow, and it's harder for the older guys, only gal is young, so this wouldn't apply to her, but the older guys, is you basically piss your fucking life away so far, 20, 25, 30 years. And as I famously say, or more, some people say infamously say, you should have rolled down the leg of your fat mama when you were conceived. But we're going to turn that all around if you're willing to make the emotional sacrifices. If you want it bad enough, as Kansas City obviously wanted it bad enough to overcome the deficit that they were coming back in the second half against San Francisco 49. Any questions? Good. Duncan, hit it.